Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Kemp, and this is a brief historiography of political history. So, before we get started off, it might be helpful to define what political history is. Well, T.P. Weissman wrote that political history is the history of the polis, the respublica, and the citizen body. Being as how that's literally Latin, it might be helpful to explain that a little bit more. It means that political history is the history of how political systems, public interests, and citizen bodies all coexist and interplay with one another. Being as how that's a bit of a broad definition, it might be helpful to understand where political history sits within the academic discipline of history as a whole, or how it interacted with the themes and shifts over time, as outlined by the cynical historian earlier on in our class. And well, even where it sits as a subfield is complicated because you could argue that political history is a subfield of cultural history or of social history or of economic history. But really, as a discipline, it predates all of them. For a long time, political history was the history practiced among historians. And while there may have been papers written on other subjects, political history was like the meat and potatoes of historians. Um, Going so far back as 431 BC, Thucydides wrote The History of the Peloponnesian War, which is still a fantastic account of the war and used by historians. And that is a great example of political history. Um, Going forward in time a little bit more, skipping the medieval era, you have the professionalization of the field and individuals such as Edward Freeman, who wrote that history is past politics and politics present history. Um, then there was a man by the name of Leopold von Ranke who helped popularize Western historiography as a practice. Like we're doing historiography because, in no small part, of him. And while political history may remain that sort of all encompassing monolith until new political history starts to emerge in the 60s and 70s, it would still be helpful to understand what was happening within the field from the time of Freeman and von Ranke's contemporary Hegel up through the cultural turn of the 60s and 70s. Before we get to the 20th century, though, we need to talk about Freeman and von Ranke's contemporary Hegel. In the 19th century, you had alongside von Ranke the Hegelian dialectic, which the cynical historian discussed. And it's a form of philosophical argument where you take two sides and you pit them against each other, and then you flip your argument around and you use those same two sides and you keep going back and forth till you have what you feel like is a solid argument. Now, his dialectic and his type of philosophy as a whole, because he was a philosopher, influenced academics in Europe at the time. Now, one of those academics was Karl Marx. Marx's big contribution to the field of political history was how he examined class structure and the cyclical nature of revolution. Now, after Karl Marx and towards the tail end of the 19th century, you had the modernization theory. Now, this, like the dialectic, was philosophical in nature. It wasn't necessarily historical in the academic sense, but because he was an academic, he still influenced historians. He encouraged the use of the scientific method to examine cause and effect. So this caused individuals to step away from citing God as a source. So if you look into history and the gods were angry and they caused this army to lose, he encouraged a shift away from that into examining individual sources. So the army didn't lose because of God; the army lost because of a poor supply line, or or it rained and they couldn't maneuver properly. Okay, now that I've finished the 19th century and notice that I'm already going over on time, I need to try to speed this up. The 20th century was hard on political history. Now, it had once been like this great monolith of what historians viewed their profession as. It's like great men and great events. And these are the things that shape our society and shape our world. Well, the rise of schools of thought like the consensus school of thought and the linguistic and cultural turns and the new left all served to erode away at this idea. And what had happened with political history is that it needed to start taking cues from these different schools in like microhistory, for example. And instead of looking at great men and great ideas, it needed to look at smaller events and how these microcosmic ideas and events and people can affect everything as a whole. Now, this wasn't easy. A historian by the name of William E. Leuchtenberg, who was a political historian, wrote in 1986 that when someone tells you, as I am about to tell you, that the historian's next frontier is political history, there would appear to be only one sensible response. You have got to be kidding. So, where's political history today? Well, in academia, it no longer enjoys the sense of primacy that it once had. Um, because of the aforementioned shifts in thought that historians have enjoyed and practiced over the 20th and into 21st century, it has a much smaller role. The study of great men and great ideas isn't as popular as it once was, and that's okay. It's nice to see different points of view and perspectives. But on the other end of things, and especially in the United States, with as politicized as everything has gotten, there is an extremely large market for like pop culture, political history, where great men and great ideas and these sweeping events are very popular and, like in a monetary sense, very successful. Now, I'm sure I've missed something, but thank you for watching and listening nonetheless. Um, my works cited are here at the end. If you have any questions about any of my sources, please ask. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I hope you have a great break before fall semester. All right. Bye.